Stop spending all your money on VSTs and drum kits. You don't need to be rich to be a good musician. I'm going to show you how. My number one plugin that I use that is completely free is called Labs. I've covered it in a separate video, but I'd like to cover it again, just to reinforce the point. Check the top of the description. In my opinion, the most important part of music creation is sound selection. Now, being that, you may want to invest money into VSTs. If you have the money, that's okay. But if you're a beginner, I would highly recommend getting used to these kind of sounds that are free. Even though these are completely free, they are extremely high quality. And as a music producer, you should never blame the tools that you have. Instead, look to improve your own skills. We have an extremely basic chord pattern here. If we analyze these chords on a deeper level, we can see how simplistic it actually is. So this goes from the bass note C down to F. And our chords are built up of C minor and F minor. Now this does look a bit complex to a beginner, but let's break it down. So this chord right here is just a basic C minor chord. And this is a C minor chord with the middle note put down one. This can create a dark mood and tone. These notes are accent notes, and they play at a higher octave to give it some sort of texture. As this beat is more of a darker type beat, we want the notes that are very dissonant and close to each other. Dissonance means lack of harmony and creates that eerie type of feel that you hear. Now this second chord is F, the F minor chord. Now if we put these notes down an octave, you can see how it's the identical chord. We've got a basic F minor chord and then the same technique here where the middle note is put down one. Except for this time, I put these notes up an octave. As if you listen to this, it sounds far too low in my opinion. And personally, I think it sounds far better like that. These notes up here are the middle notes copied up one octave. That's it for our chord progression. Now this is extremely simple but very, very effective. The preset that I use on Labs is modular pianos, the tape piano here, and there is very little done to the actual piano. If we go over to the settings here, we see there is just an EQ cutting out the bass right here. We want a kind of accent and a melody on here. That's the type of vibe I'm going for, pretty simplistic, to leave a lot of room for an artist. So if we go over to this guitar's actually not from Labs. This is from a one-shot. I'll see if I can find the kit and put it in the description. It was again completely free. Now here I'm just following notes that are similar to the ones in the chord, as you can see D sharp and D here. Now the most important thing with music is being able to use your ear, hear what sounds good in what scenario. Now this comes with time and practice, so don't worry if you can't do this immediately. This is a very, very basic repeating melody here that copies over these bars, and on the final note here it goes down to A. So if you can hear how this sounds pretty nice. So now we've got these two together. It's sounding really good. Let's check the effects for our guitar here. First up, we've got an EQ cutting out a lot of the high and low end and slightly boosting the high mid to give it a little more presence. The reason I cut out those frequencies is because they are not needed in this sound and actually clash with the other sounds we have. On here we have a Sparkz origin, which also does a similar thing with this knob here, and very slight movement and slight chorus with a tiny bit of saturation as well. Next up, I added a delay on the shimmer preset. Let me turn it off and show you the difference. Without it, it's just kind of like a one-shot. This adds that reverse effect, and in my opinion, elevates this beat so much. Now, Delay and Sparkz Origin are both free plugins. And then finally, I added a slight reverb on the bottom here to largen the sound. The next thing that I added was another accent guitar. Now, this guitar is also from the same one-shot kit. This is the KB Guitar 86, and this just plays some... It plays some notes that co-align with the other guitar to still keep that dark feel. If we play these together. Now, if you're wondering how I'm getting these notes, I'm playing notes that are in my chords and listening to which other notes might work as well. This preset has a lot of effects on it, so I'm just going to put them on screen right now, as it would take far too long to explain each of them. What this is basically doing is making the sound like it's underwater. If we listen without these effects, it sounds like a realistic guitar. I didn't want it to sound like a realistic guitar. I want it to be more spacey and atmospheric. Be mindful of what effects you're adding onto your sounds to affect the whole mood of the beat. Now, the next thing I added was another Labs preset, and this time it was the textural pads and And it kind of sounds like a choir. It's like sounds like voices. So if you hear it here. And these notes are playing G sharp and G. Now, if we look at our chords, the final two notes are G sharp and G. As a producer, you need to be very meticulous where you place the sounds. Not always in the beat do you want certain sounds, and you don't always want them sustaining throughout the entire beat. This beat would sound a lot different if I had this sound sustaining over the entire chord sequence, but no, it's only at the end to give it that nice little flavor. Next up, we have another free plugin, which is an amazing one as well, and it is called BBC Symphony Orchestra. We're using the violin preset. Now, this is sustaining the top note of the chord, and then a little, and then playing the same notes that are kind of like choiry sound is playing as well. Now, if we listen to this on its own. It gives it that subtle kind of creepy feel, like something's slowly creeping up on you. I like this very much for the intro. Now finally, what I like to call the driving force of this beat is a very, very simple repetitive melody that brings some excitement. Now let's listen to this on its own. This is also once again Labs, and it's using the Moon Guitar 02 preset. And this is just repeating some notes in the chord. It's very repetitive and catchy, and it complements this beat a tremendous amount. Let's listen to it with everything else. The notes that I'm playing on this guitar are the bottom two notes of our chords, as you can see. So C, D sharp, and on this one, instead of being next to each other, so if we put this down, these would be next to each other. I put them up just to give it a little more flavor to it. We have an EQ boosting a lot of the treble, and this is to give it a little more presence, and again cutting out a lot of the bass and low because it is not needed. As well as this, we have a Cymax origin with a bit of movement and chorus on it, and zero saturation, and finally a reverb to slightly make the sound larger. And I was able to make this without spending anything apart from my time. Now, it will be difficult at first, and it is very easy to try and blame your tools that you may or may not have, but what you really need to do is focus on what you do have and work on improving it. Don't jump straight to, oh, I need a new VST, because VSTs are really helpful and they're a good investment to make, but not as a beginner. If you're just starting out, get used to the tools that you have for free, and then once you feel like this is what you want to do or you want to get better, then invest. But just to let you know, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what you buy because you can make this for free. Now with the arrangement here, now this beat isn't finished. It will be posted at the top right. But yeah, this beat isn't finished, but the arrangement, I wanted it to build up in this intro here, and then I wanted it to drop without the chords, and the drums come in here. So we'll take a listen. And then the chords. It's nice to hear, and then you're like, you can get used to this beat and just with the chords and the guitar, and you're like, this sounds really good. But when it starts bringing in the other elements, you remember how good the beat was on the drop. Also, if you drop your beat with fewer instruments, the drums seem to hit way harder. So remember, save your money, invest your time, and keep improving and keep producing. You got this. Peace.